Hey everybody, welcome. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to ride Via's Canadian from Winnipeg to Vancouver. Of course, Via's Canadian used to run right through Calgary, where I live. That hasn't happened for decades. So if you want to get on board, you have to fly somewhere. Now I've ridden every mile of the modern day Canadian from Toronto to Vancouver and back. I find the best section is between Winnipeg and Vancouver. So let's get on the plane and let's head off to Winnipeg for our westbound trip. Now this is one of the more rattly takeoffs I've ever encountered. And just to add a little bit of interest, the person behind me had a cat stuffed underneath my seat who was not pleased with what was going on. We arrived to a beautiful sunny day in Winnipeg. My friend Jeff came to pick us up from the airport and we had a few hours to kill. Now I love old railroad hotels as much as I love railroad stations. This is the Fort Garry Hotel, located about a block away from the station itself. This of course is an old CN hotel and well worth a visit. The Canadian used to call on CP station in Winnipeg from 1955 to 1978, before the inception of Via. Now this station was built in 1904, opened in 1905. It's now occupied by the Neeginan Aboriginal Centre and can be booked for various different functions. With the formation of Via, the Canadian was moved over to Union Station, where it shared platform space with the Supercontinental. Of course, the Supercontinental is long gone, but the Canadian still uses Union Station to this day. Union Station is one of the largest in Western Canada and didn't just serve CN and its predecessor roads, but also Northern Pacific and Great Northern trains called here as well. Today you can catch both the Canadian and the train to Churchill from this station, which features a fantastic domed foyer as soon as you enter the building. Via spent some money a number of years ago restoring the waiting area. The tracks are directly above and you take an escalator up to track level. The first thing to do once you're settled on the train, of course, is to get your butt up to the dome, and that's exactly what I did. It's an evening departure from Winnipeg West, but I wanted to stay up in the dome and watch the signals drop until we got to Portage. I was up bright and early the next day to make sure that I caught the sunrise as we rolled through Saskatchewan. It looked like it was going to be a fantastic day as we rolled across the prairies. And then we got the news. There was a derailment east of Edmonton, which was going to force our train to sit in Saskatoon from 12 to 18 hours. In contrast to the stations in Winnipeg, may I present to you the Saskatoon Via Station. Pretty sure this one is not on the shortlist for historic structure status. Now, knowing that we were going to be sitting here for more than half a day, I contacted a friend of mine to see if he wanted to go for coffee, and he was more than willing to do so. So Craig and his son Ross came down, picked us up, and we went for coffee and a quick tour of Saskatoon. Now Saskatoon's original CN station was downtown. It was torn down to make way for a mall. When they built the mall, however, they did try to keep some of the aesthetics of the station when they built the facade. Saskatoon also had a CN hotel, the Besborough. This is known locally as the Castle, and I stayed here a number of years back for a friend's wedding. Great old hotel. CP also had a station in Saskatoon. Now this isn't their main line, so this wasn't serviced by the Canadian, but it's still a cool old building, now occupied by commercial interests. We're back at the station before dinner on the train, and the sun was just right to get this head-end shot of the power. I also took some time to get some shots of Laurentide Park. This is the park car on the back of the train, and I tried my best to crop out that buffer that Via is currently using. That's going to come to an end here real quick, and I'm looking forward to that. This car has been refurbished as part of the Prestige fleet. Now, it's off-season, so we had access to the car, and it's a beautiful place to hang out, have a drink, and just chat with fellow passengers. And of course, that's the beauty of riding the train, is the people that you meet. We started moving at 03:35. I threw on some clothes, hopped up into the dome to get this picture of the green board that marked the resumption of our trip west, and then headed back to bed, looking forward to breakfast in a few hours in Alberta. Now, if you've ever been to the prairies, you know that it's not just flat land. In fact, some of the biggest bridges can be found on the prairies, as the rivers cut deep chasms and coulees through the soft soil. This is the Fabian Trestle crossing the Battle River just outside of Wainwright, Alberta. Definitely one of the cooler bridges on the line. We were soon at the site of the derailment. Most of it had been cleaned up. A few grain cars remained, but not much equipment was left on the ground. In fact, most of the damage was caused to the rail from a broken wheel. As we rolled through Sherwood Park, past endless strings of tank cars denoting the importance of Alberta's petrochemical industry, I got a call from a friend of mine who wanted to know where we were. He was out with his drone and wanted to get some pictures of number 1 as it crossed the North Saskatchewan River. AJ was set up on the west side of the river as we tiptoed across the bridge. Of course, I couldn't resist taking a picture of the guy taking a picture of my son and I in the second and third seat of the dome. As soon as we crossed the bridge, we came across the Lorem rail grinder. This set had been working out by Prince George, but had been expedited east to dress up the new rail at the derailment site. The train negotiated a shoe fly around a bridge replacement project across Fort Road before arriving at the station in Edmonton. To access the station in Edmonton, which is on the south leg of Y, the train, regardless of direction, has to make a reverse movement into the station platform. The south leg of the Y is actually part of the old original passenger main that accessed the station when it was located in downtown Edmonton. Of course, Edmonton is a major terminal and locomotive servicing facility. I managed to catch this picture of 1653 SD38-2, originally built as Northern Alberta Railway's 404 upon departure. There was also a long line of Dash 8s awaiting an uncertain fate. There was regular cab Dash 8s present, bought secondhand from Union Pacific, originally built for Chicago Northwestern, as well as Dash 840 CMs from both CN and BC Rail.
This thingy. A third one?
And even a few Dash 840 CWs originally built for the Santa Fe. We left Saskatoon 17 hours off schedule, but managed to make up some time, and after getting out of Edmonton, we were only about 13 hours behind. Of course, traffic had backed up on the opposite side of Edmonton as well, and we started running into that traffic, including train number 2, the eastbound Canadian, which we met between Edson and Hinton. Now, if the train's on time, arrival Jasper is first thing in the morning. However, it was getting dark by the time we rolled in. The station at Jasper was built in 1925, just after the Canadian National was formed from the Canadian Northern and the Grand Trunk Pacific. Now, Jasper is a service stop for the train, so we got off and had a good 45-minute walk around the town site itself before hopping back on the train, hitting the sheets for the run down the North Thompson into Kamloops. Now, Via's got a big pad in the schedule between Jasper and Kamloops, and we made up some time. We arrived in North Kamloops only about 10.5–11 hours behind schedule. Immediately after departing the North Kamloops station, the tracks crossed the North Thompson River on a lift bridge. The North Thompson and the South Thompson rivers both come together in Kamloops and flow into Kamloops Lake. CP follows the south shore of the lake, while CN tracks, the ones we're on, follow the north shore of the lake, and as you can see, it's some pretty rugged railroading. I spent 25 years trucking through this area, and I've never gotten sick of the scenery for obvious reasons. I knew what was coming up here, so we made a quick dash off to breakfast before we got into the really good stuff. Kamloops Lake is about 30 kilometers long, or 18 miles for those of you that don't believe in the metric system. Water from the lake flows west, forming the Thompson River and the Thompson River Canyon. Both CN and CP follow the Thompson River west to its confluence with the Fraser at Lytton, BC. This is a semi-arid region in a rain shadow and doesn't see much precipitation. Of course, CP, having built through here first, has the better alignment, and CN is forced to cross the river several times. This is the crossing at Wallachin, and just to the west is the Maccabee Quarry, where CN gets a good portion of its ballast. Well, CP's got one too on the other side. Just west of Ashcroft, the railroad enters what's known as the Black Canyon. At the west end of Black Canyon, the railroad bores through a tunnel and crosses the Thompson before heading to the station of Basque. Now, CP and CN have directional running from Basque to Mission through the Thompson and Fraser Canyons. And in AJ's shot here, you can see both a CN and a CP train heading west. At Basque, the CP train will head onto CN tracks for the run west down both canyons. After crossing the river yet again and running through Spence's Bridge, the canyon starts to narrow up, and the tracks run through what's known as the Skooka Tunnels. This is the view taken from the Highway 1 bridge crossing the CP tracks that you can see in the foreground. And this photo, taken closer to the river, shows number 1 running late back in 2017. Take note of the suspension bridge used to access the west side of the river. Now let's sit back and see what it looks like from the center window of the parked car. The tracks then pass through Pitqua, or Morris as it's called today. Now, back when I was trucking, we called this area the Snake Pit because of the multiple reverse curves along the highway. And this photo by Mike Danneman really shows off the nature of the area. Now, if there's ever a reason to wish a train's late, this would be it. This is known as White Canyon and is arguably the most photographed railroad location in all of BC. Now, as you can see, the rock above the track is quite unstable, and numerous rock sheds or slide sheds protect trains as they pass through. And then after we go through the tunnel, there's another set of them too. Normally they go way slower through here too.
That would be the only thing stopping those rocks being
Well, we're past it now, so you're okay.
It looks like it needs preserving. What were you saying about the Rocky Mountaineer? That's not. Is that
White Canyon gives way to Rainbow Canyon, as you can see the abrupt change in color of the rock, before passing through one last tunnel before arriving at Lytton. Now you might remember Lytton from the news, as 90% of the town burnt down during a forest fire a number of years ago.
Specifically set up for tourism. It's not set up, like, to me this is a train, right?
The railroad crosses the Thompson River for the last time at Lytton. In fact, this is where the Thompson and the Fraser rivers meet. And if you look down at the river, you can see where the silty water of the Fraser comes together with the water of the Thompson before the tracks cross to the west bank of the Fraser. Another famous railroad location in BC is the Cisco Bridges, where both CN and CP swap to opposite sides of the river. The view from the center of the arch span is quite spectacular. Unfortunately, the dome was full and I didn't get an opportunity to get to the right side of the train and get a shot of the CP bridge. But Owen's photo, taken down at water level, shows you that CP's crossing is every bit as dramatic as CN's. The climate in the Fraser Canyon is completely the opposite of the Thompson, and rain began to fall, making video and photos from the dome near impossible. I did manage to get this one shot out the side window of the parked car of what I believe to be the Sealoo Creek Bridge over on the CP tracks, before relaxing with a drink in the observation lounge. The Fraser Canyon widens out, becoming the Fraser Valley, and after a quick trip through farmlands, the cities of Chilliwack, Abbotsford, and Fort Langley, we arrived at Thornton Yard, formerly known as Port Mann. Through rain-spattered windows, I shot this interesting collection of motor power hanging out of the diesel shops before the train crossed the Fraser River for the last time into New Westminster. And finally, the end of the line. After being down 17 hours in Saskatoon, we arrived in Vancouver only 8 hours late. A quick ride on the SkyTrain down to Waterfront Station to catch the C bus was next. Now, Waterfront is CP's old station, opened in 1914 and serviced the Canadian until 1979. I was lucky enough as a kid to ride number 2 from here to Calgary twice before the Canadian was moved over to the Pacific Central Station. Today it serves as a major transportation hub. It's the terminus for several SkyTrain lines, the West Coast Express, as well as a terminal for the C bus that takes you across Burrard Inlet to Lonsdale on the North Shore. Before hopping on the C bus though, I had to go see the statue commemorating the CP employees that gave their lives for the First, Second, and the Korean Wars. There's 3 of these statues. One's in Montreal Windsor Station, one's in Winnipeg, and one's here at Waterfront. It's a quick 12-minute ride by C bus across Burrard Inlet to the North Shore. This area was once shipyard, but has been repurposed into a farmer's market, coffee shops, pubs, and restaurants. With hotels in there as well, this is a really cool place to stay. Everything's within walking distance right on the waterfront. The next day we're back on the C bus over to Vancouver, onto the SkyTrain and off to the airport for the flight back to Calgary, which I'm happy to report was cat-free. Special thanks to my good friend Jeff in Winnipeg for picking us up at the airport and making sure I was fed every 27.5 minutes. Craig and Ross Mykytyzyn in Saskatoon for taking time out of their day to come down to the station to see us and giving us a tour of the town. And of course AJ Shewan for drone shots in Edmonton and lattes on the station platform. Of course, thank you to the crew of the Westbound Canadian and all the photographers who graciously allowed me to use their images. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. We'll see you in the next video.